Okay. Yes, yes. Happy Friday. Is it raining where you are, Laura?
Yes, it is.
No,
No.
not where
Yes,
I'm
Miss
And where are
Paula.
you? Huh? Who is that?
I'm in
Okay, Philly. It's cold up there, though. I'll take the rain over the cold. Yeah, we're going to start shortly, and we're setting it up on Facebook and streaming it live. I'm so excited about this masterclass because I love bringing in those who've been in this space, and they're able to share their wisdom of do's and don'ts, and how do you get in the door. So this will be wonderful. Are we set on Facebook, Shayla, yet?
I'm trying to add it now, but it's not letting me. Hold on, I'm trying to put it on there.
Well, I may have to do it. You want me to cancel? You can cancel,
Cancel. Okay.
and I'll do it.
Try it from your end, yeah. Because I'm clicking more to go live, but it's not letting me.
Okay, yeah.
Got it. Okay, there we go.
Good afternoon, everyone. Cassandra, how you
Good
guys
afternoon.
doing?
Good afternoon. How are you?
I'm just blessed.
We glad to hear that. All right, give us a couple of moments as we get this Facebook going. And welcome, 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 everyone. Welcome. All right. Before we begin, it is noon, and I want to be conscious of everyone's time. But welcome to our masterclass, our Lunch and Learn. Before we jump into the lesson, we always like to go through the housekeeping. And for those of you who aren't aware of us, and welcome to the Facebook community, we are the Government Procurement Innovators, your innovative solutions to federal contracting. For those of you who have logged on, you know we're all about connecting and networking. So please be sure to add your information into the chat box. On Facebook, please put your information in the stream. We'd like to have your name, business name, email, your areas of background, if you have any certifications. And those of you who have completed the GPI program, make sure that you go to the website and complete your business profile. It's all about connecting, teaming, and understanding who's in the house. Tomorrow, we'll be hosting the information session with the next cohort starting on Tuesday from 8 to 9:30 p.m. If those of you who have gone through the program or currently in the program and you see it as value, please share it with your network, and let's continue to build out this community. And what do I have here? Also, for those of you who don't know, I've self-published a book called That's Crazy, Recognize Crazy and Run. You can scan the barcode and purchase it at store.bookbaby.com or through Amazon. And if you need more information, you can contact us either via email or you can scan the code, and I encourage you to go to our website and look at some of the previous recordings that we've had on under the business tube. It's all about educating and each one teach one. If you haven't subscribed yet, please make sure you go to our Facebook page, LinkedIn, and Instagram. Let's continue to spread the word about the GPI community. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce Mr. Ed Schultz. Ed and I think I left the government in 2015, and Ed left the government in 2017. So Ed, I'd like for you to just go ahead and introduce yourself to our audience and give them a little background of who you are and your experience in this space.
Sure. Hey, Paula. Hey, everybody. Thanks for this opportunity. I love doing stuff like this. This does not feel like work. So Ed Schultz, I did 34 years, almost 34 years with the federal government, with the last 25 at the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Prior to that, I worked at NASA, at the Kennedy Space Center, and at Robins Air Force Base. All of it is in contracting. I've been a contracting officer all my life, and I tell companies all the time, that's all I know, and living day in, day out for all those years. And so then like I said, I retired in January of 2017 and instantly got into the world of consulting. And I haven't looked back since, been out in the consulting market, over 6 years now. It does not feel like a job. It's fun. I like helping companies. I think my passion is small businesses and just help them and go from there. A couple weeks ago, Paul and I were talking about some stuff, and I don't know, we were in a conversation, and she was like, could you do a lunch and learn or something like that and have this conversation we just had? And so I said, sure, and so, what I want to talk about today is how to talk to a contracting officer. I get this question all the time, and I want to talk about 4 things. I want to talk about what to say. I want to talk about what not to say. And I want to talk about preparation tips on how to prepare for this conversation. And then I want to talk about execution. And I want to also talk about email execution when you're communicating with the contract officer. So just kicking it all off. So always keep it brief, and prepare for a 15-minute conversation. That's all you're going to get, but be prepared for that. Know what you want to talk about. Try to stay on target. Try to keep personal information to a minimum. I want to talk to them. You want to talk to them about your business and what you can do and what your capabilities are. You get one chance to make one good first impression.
So, how do you prepare? You said preparation. What does preparation look like for you?
Okay, now I'll get there in a minute. Not quite there yet. Keep that question. It's but just another thing that as a contracting officer that irritates me to no end, and that is bragging. Be careful about bragging to a contracting officer. Just it's okay to talk about my children or my dog or something like that, but just try to keep that to a minimum. And we're trying to keep them to a minimum too. That prepare for 15 minutes and try to keep them on target too, because there are some contracting officers, if you say one thing about a dog, they're going to talk 15 minutes about the dog, but try to delicately keep them on target. Okay, so you have this opportunity. You're going to talk to the contracting officer about your company. Okay, I'm going to talk about the word I here in a minute, but about your company. What do you talk about? Talk about your employees. Talk about your employee retention. Talk about your ability to obtain incumbent contractor employees. Talk about how you're going to staff. Talk about, like I said, your retention rate. I'll say, hey, our retention rate is 92%. Talk about your retention rate, because, in these times, sometimes staffing is a challenge to get staff, and things like that. Something else I'm getting goosebumps telling you about this next thing is talk about your partners, talk about your subcontractors, talk about companies you have relationships with. Talk about what I call wow factors. And this is, you know, you're a subcontractor to Coca-Cola. You're a subcontractor to Home Depot. You know, wow, really? You know, that's important. You know, companies out there, you got the Booz Allen Hamiltons or the Deloittes or the Leidos. You talk about them. Hey, you know, we're doing some work with Booz Allen. You know, talk about these companies that you had relationships with that could be a wow factor. You know, this is, wow, you're working with Coca-Cola. That's pretty impressive, you know, and that's what we're trying to do. You know, you're trying to talk about, you know, who you work with and things like that. Let's say you're in a joint venture. Talk about that. Talk about, you know, your 8A company, your woman-owned small business, you know, those socioeconomic categories, you know, talk about those, you know, but we're talking briefly, you know, we're an 8A company. We entered the 8A program in such and such date. We, you know, graduate in such and such date. They need to know that, you know, when talk about past performance. Hey, do you have any experience at CDC already? You know, I'm going to use CDC a bunch, but it's Air Force, it's NASA, it's, you know, HUD, it's GSA, it's government agencies. Where have you been? What have you done? You know, briefly, again, in this 15-minute block, you're going to talk about past performance, similar experience. What else have you done that could be of notable? You know, and if you have partners that have a footprint at the agency, you talk about that. You know,
What if you're just a small business and you're just starting out? So is that the same kind of conversation?
it could be. Explain that. Explain where you're at, where you're coming from. You know, there are companies that have absolutely no experience. Well, you got to get some somewhere. You know, and talk about that. These companies that are in the 8A program. How did they get in the 8A program? What did they do to get there? What was their revenue? What was their experience? You know, things like that. You know, another thing is when talking to a contracting officer, man, be as positive as you can, especially about any kind of feedback. You know, if you've had workings with another contract specialist or contracting officer, compliment them on that. You know, do what you can to stay positive. You know, don't complain about, you know, this or that, you know, be positive about the agency mission, you know. So CDC, you Google CDC, you can read all kinds of stuff that happened yesterday about CDC. You know, be positive and you know, I mean, you take CDC, these folks working at CDC, they're proud of where they work for, you know, and say, man, CDC did a great job on this and that and this and that. You know, just try to be positive. This whole conversation is positive. You know, we're trying to get 15 minutes in. They may give you 30 minutes. They may give you an hour, but focus on 15 minutes in that time. You know, these are human beings too. You know, talk to them. You know, sometimes it's good to start off, you know, on a personal note or something like that. But you know, always be very cognizant of their time. These folks don't have a lot of time. You know, I'm going to talk more about that here in a minute. You know, what about what not to say? Okay, I can go on and on about what not to say. You know, and one of the things, and I'm going to give you some examples of what not to say. Be careful using the word I. Okay, we want to know about your company. We want to know what your company's done, where they've been, and all that. Not so much about you as an individual. Okay, be careful with the word I. Here's an example. Years ago, when I was with CDC, we would have companies come in and brief a room full of contracting officers in like a capability briefing. Had this guy come in, pretty impressive company. This guy was very impressive. He was Army Ranger, did 3 tours in Afghanistan. I mean, this guy was, I mean, he was bad to the bone. But he let us know that. He used the word I too much in everything that I did. Hey, when I was in Afghanistan, when I did this, and I couldn't get past it. I quit hearing what he was saying because he used the word I too much. We want to know about your company. You know, occasional use of the word I, yeah, that's great, but careful there. We want to know about the company. You know, after this briefing was over, you know, and the guy says, "What'd you think?" And I said, I got no filter. I'm going to tell you what I thought because you need to know. I said, "You use the word I too much." He said, "What does that mean?" I said, "Man, I want to know about your company, not so much about you as an individual. Use the word I too much. I appreciate your service." And, you know, I went on about that, but that's what he did, you know, so, be careful about that. The contracting officer, that's a business person. that's not necessarily a technical person, okay? Yeah, they know technical a little bit, but contract officers, that's a business. They're in a business position. You know, when you talk to them, keep that in mind that they're not technical, they're a business, okay? And another example, same thing, I had another company come in and brief a room full of contract officers. The guy who's doing the briefing, not only did he have a bachelor's degree in microbiology, he was a master's degree in microbiology and had a PhD in microbiology and virology and epidemiology. I mean, this group, that was something else. And he couldn't talk to the contracting officers. He lost us right off the bat. He was way too technical. You have a room full of microbiologists, oh man, they're going to be salivating at everything this guy's saying. He lost us. After the presentation was over, he said, hey, what'd you think? I said, wow, awesome presentation. Wrong audience. What do you mean wrong audience? I said, these are contracting officers. These are business people. These are not microbiologists. You know, when you start talking about, I remember this was 15 years ago. I said, you start talking about virology, you lost me and you lost everyone in the room. You know, another thing is, you know, if you're in the services of IT services and you start talking about the cloud and data analytics, and be careful there. These are not IT people. They may be buying IT services and awarding contracts for IT services. They're not IT subject matter experts. Be careful when you talk IT that you can quickly lose the audience. Okay, here's a good one. Don't ask a question that you wouldn't want your competitor to know the answer of. Okay, be careful there. A contracting officer, you know, is all about procurement integrity and safeguarding information and confidentiality. You know, don't ask a question that could lapse that confidentiality. Be careful there. Be careful asking a question that would result in the contracting officer saying, sorry, that information is source selection sensitive. That information is proprietary. You know, don't ask, hey, how's that incumbent doing? Are they doing a good job on the contract? Don't ask about that. They're not going to tell you. You know, try to avoid asking a question that's going to result in a no answer. You know, don't, you know, you say, well, how many proposals did y'all get? Don't ask that question. You know, who's on the evaluation panel? Don't ask that question. Don't ask that type of information that you really don't have a need to know. You know, because
Can I ask if they've had challenges on that contract? Is that appropriate?
It's appropriate, but don't ask about a company. You know, don't ask
Correct.
about confidential type information, because now, and once you start doing that, I got my guard up because I think y'all are trying to wean information out of me that I'm not going to tell you. You know, just, you know, be careful doing stuff like that. It doesn't go over well. You know, and you know, that's what helped the company a couple weeks ago, and they said, yeah, we need to try to find out who's on the evaluation panel, on the technical evaluation panel. And I said, well, why? Well, just so we can market. No, don't do that. Do not ask that question. Do not kind of find these people out, because, you know, if you're not careful, you could get thrown out of this opportunity because you're trying to get insider information, you know, and if you happen to get insider information, you could be determined to have an unfair competitive advantage and you don't get to play. You know, and so it's you know, I'm not trying to scare you in talking to a contracting officer, but, you know, be careful what you ask. You know, they're trying to keep everyone on the same level, and you wouldn't want one of your competitors asking information and getting a heads up on something that you don't know about. And so, you know, as a contracting officer, I always got my guard up. And they all do. That's what they do. You know, it's you know, and you know, when we talk about, you know, being cognizant of their time, they got a heavy workload. And I'm talking about government wide. I'm not just talking about CDC. These folks have too much to do and not enough resources or people to do it. Okay, keep it to a minimum because of that. You know, a lot of contracting officers, it may be difficult to get time with them. You know, in this day and age, Don't ask for a face-to-face meeting with these folks because it's easy for them to say no. At CDC, the contract office, the Office of Acquisition Services, they're almost entirely 100% telework. They don't go into the office. The new director, for instance, in OAS, a lady by the name of Nancy Norton, she's been on board 2 weeks now, former deputy director there. She lives in Baltimore. She don't live in Atlanta. The job is 100% remote. And so, be careful asking for a face-to-face meeting because it's so easy for them to say, no, I don't come into the office. A couple of weeks ago, there was an NCMA Industry Day. I met two new CDC employees. They've been on board for about 14 months now. They have never been in the office. They don't even know what an office is. They're 100% working at home, and so you're talking to the contract officer and you ask for can I get a 15-minute Zoom meeting with you? Can I get a 15-minute Teams meeting with you? And if they say, yeah, okay, well, you set that up. Don't ask them to set up that Zoom meeting. You take the motion to set it up. And there again, now the clock starts. You got this meeting set up and you're going to be on the dance floor to talk to the contract officer. I want to talk about, tips on how to prepare for this discussion. Okay. And first and foremost, who are you talking to? Know who you're talking to. Know, what does that contract officer, what do they do? Who do they support? Let me use CDC as an example. The Centers for Disease Control has all these national centers, across CDC. The way the Office of Acquisition Services is structured is if the National Center for Global Health, Center for Global Health, there's one office, procurement office, one team that supports that organization. And so if you're going to talk to the contract officer about a requirement, an opportunity within the Center for Global Health, do your homework. Go to cdc.gov, go to Center for Global Health, read what they do, read what their mission is, read what their hotspots are, learn about this organization. You got to do your homework, or let's say you're going after a construction project. Again, at CDC, there's an individual, there's a team at CDC. That's what they focus on is construction. Know who your contract officer is, know who they support. Sometimes that's hard to find out, but you got to do some digging. You go to, Housing and Urban Development, HUD. They have a great forecast. Go to HUD.gov and look at it. They identify individuals. They identify people to talk to. Do your homework. What does HUD do? Where do they do it at? Go to HUD.gov. Do your homework. I cannot stress that enough. And there again, know the major focus of the agency. We might want to go and look at what Center for Global Health does at CDC, but be aware of what does CDC do? Where do they do it at? Again, go to Google, type in CDC, type in HUD, find out what they're in the news for. Preferably what they're in the news for that is good, not bad. Don't talk about the bad stuff. Talk about the good stuff. Okay, here's a good one. Okay, acronyms. Know these acronyms. If you don't know acronyms with the agency you're going after, you will quickly get lost in conversation. Okay, I'll give you an example. At CDC again, there's this acronym. It's called CIO. It does stand for Chief Information Officer, but it also stands for Centers, Institutes, or Offices. That is what collectively all the CDC organizations are called, CIOs. Okay. And then you have all these acronyms. You have, Center for Global Health, that's CGH. You have, NCIPC, National Center for Injury Prevention and Control. And so someone says to you, hey, what CIO are you talking about? You talking about CGH or you talking about NCRD? Well, if you don't learn these acronyms, you're going to get lost. Make you up a set of flashcards, in your preparation. There again, you're going to Robins Air Force Base and you're marketing them. Learn about Robins Air Force Base, learn about some of their acronyms so you don't get lost in conversation. You can go to cdc.gov and search for acronyms, and there's a huge list of acronyms. Learn these acronyms, learn who these players are. You will get lost in conversation. So in your prep time, you're prepping for that 15 minutes of fame, and get you some talking points, get you some brief talking points, have them in front of you, because let's say you have 5 talking points you want to talk about, and you get to the third one, and the contract officer says, what kind of dog do you have? And all of a sudden you're trying to stay with your agenda, and you get sidetracked because of the contract officer throws you off, not intentionally, but they're human beings. Watch where you're at, get that back on schedule, back on target, back on the agenda, and making sure you can hit your high points, what you want to talk about. You got 15 minutes, you figure you really got about 8 minutes when you have the closing in the beginning. So what are your high points and the strengths of your company and what you're proud about your company? That kind of stuff needs to pop off the page, when you're talking to them. Like I said, always prepare for a 15-minute discussion. Maybe it will go 30 minutes. Okay, but you're preparing for a 15-minute discussion. If it goes 30 minutes, have some other stuff you want to talk about. I want to lay out these 5 items. That's what I want to talk about, but maybe have 3 or 4 others that you also want to talk about if time permits, and just, it's an open conversation, try, easy for me to say, but try to have fun with it. Try to, and try to learn about who you're talking to, things like that. Execution. I got the best one right here, and I call it the 3P. Okay. And I actually got this off a commercial I saw a couple weeks ago. Patience, patience, and patience. Okay. Have patience with these folks. These, and I'm also talking about now, I want to talk about emails. So you're sending an email to the contract officer. These folks have way too much on their plate, at CDC. CDC is sometimes their worst enemy, because CDC generates internal emails that employees subscribe to that fill up their inbox. Okay. And so, and I don't encourage sending emails on Mondays or Fridays. I emails to government employees Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. That's that, because here's what happens is, and you send an email out on a Tuesday morning. By Tuesday afternoon, there's 50 emails on top of it. By Wednesday, it's another 100. I mean, by Friday, your email that you sent on Tuesday, it has 200 emails on top of it. And maybe they didn't look at it, because we're all guilty of this. We get an email, and all of a sudden we get 5 more, and that first email we got starts dropping down the list. Okay, so be cognizant of that. I had a client, and I have to laugh about this, because he comes to me, he's irritated. It's a Wednesday. And I said, man, what's going on? He goes, man, I sent him that email on Monday. And I said, just this past Monday? He goes, yeah, 2 days ago. He goes, yeah. He goes, hey, responded yet. And I said, whoa, man, you need to chill out, back off. I said, give them time. Give them another 7 days. Oh, that doesn't make sense. I said, back off. I'm telling you, they got a lot to do, and they got a lot more important stuff to do than talk to you. They're trying to award contracts. They're trying to administer contracts. They're, be careful there. You got to have patience with these folks, and so send an email on Tuesday, a week goes by, you haven't heard anything, send the email again. But maybe when you send the email the second time, when you forward an email and it says FW in the subject line, delete that FW, because make it look like it's a brand new email in case they didn't see it, and send them to them again. It's have patience with these folks, because they got way too much on their plate, and I can learn, I've learned there's certain individuals that are good and bad about responding. There's certain individuals that I know that they're going to take 5 days to respond to you. You're not going to get it in 2 days. It's the nature of the beast. Let's talk about emails, because a lot of it is you may not get a conversation with the contract officer, but you can pretty much find their email address and send them an email. Here's the challenge with emails. It's called junk. It's called spam. You know what I'm talking about. I got an email a couple weeks ago, that very important email, and it was let me tell you the side story. I had a GoDaddy. Y'all know what GoDaddy is. I think it's where you get your domain at. Back in January, I got shut down, completely shut down. No email, no calendar, freaking out. What's going on? getting the help desk on the phone, can't find out what the problem is, find out what the problem was. My GoDaddy, 3-year GoDaddy subscription of like $69 a year expired. They tried to charge my debit card, which had been replaced with a new debit card. And they sent me 3 emails. All 3 emails went to my spam. I missed it. I missed the email. It happens, you know, and it could be that sometimes when you send an email to someone at CDC or HUD or whoever, it may go into their spam. And if they don't regularly look at that, they missed it. They didn't look at it. And so when you resend it a week later, 10 days later, it is new to them because they didn't see it because where it fell into at, you know. And so, you know, be careful with that. When I talk about emails, also I talk about what I call emails with purpose. Okay. Your email has to appear to look like it's legitimate. Okay. That subject line of email, it's critical importance to make sure that it appears to be real and with purpose. You know, I encourage companies that, you know, you send an email to a contracting officer, and if you have an opportunity to try to put some color in the email, preferably not red, but, you know, color in the email, it pops off the page. They see it and say, wow, oh, what's this? You know, it's, you know, has a you know, something blue or yellow or whatever. And just, you're competing against emails that don't have purpose. And you got to try to, you know, you got to try to pop off the page. And when you know, when they look at that, I mean, it's the nature of the beast when it comes to trying to do email communications. You know, in this day and age, you know, that's the name of the game. You know, and it's, you know, you attach, you know, you go to the contracting officer, you send an email, you know, you attach your capability statement and you know where you are, where you know, and you know, you're trying to, you know, a couple of things you're trying to do is, you know, you're trying to get the name of you and your company out there. You know, and it could be that you send that email to the contracting officer and they may take it and send it to a half a dozen more people. You know, you just always gotta, you know, and these emails are short and sweet and to the point, you know, and like I said, it's emails with purpose and trying to compete against the spam and the junk, you know. But I guess, you know, contracting officers are human beings too. Like I said, they have a lot going on and you know, always, like I said, be respectful of their time and don't ask questions that they got to say no. You know, don't ask questions that is sensitive type information. It happens all the time. How many proposals did y'all get? I'm not going to tell you that because you don't need to know. You're starting to irritate me by asking me questions that I got to keep saying no to. You know, I mean, is that, you know, that's kind of, I mean, the nutshell of everything is be respectful.
So thank you. Wasn't that helpful for everyone? Just the basic, and some of it is just the basic. So can you tell me what is the average caseload for the contracting officer? What's the structure? I know on sam.gov, you're going to see the contract specialist. So how does that work? How do you work in that structure?
Okay. So think about this now. A contracting officer is always a contract specialist, but a contract specialist is not always a contracting officer. You know, a contracting officer, that's a warranted position. They get a certificate, a delegation of authority, you know, with the authority to sign a contract. When information goes into FPDS usually, or when it goes into, you know, for Federal Procurement Data System or SAM.gov, it's usually the contract specialist because, I mean, let's talk about like maybe just structure it, say at CDC. You know, the Office of Acquisition Services at CDC has 4 branches, okay? Each branch has 4 team leaders, and each team leader has a staff of contract specialists and or contract officers. And so, you know, what happens is, and the way they're structured is, the Center for Global Health, they generate a procurement action. It goes into a system, electronic system, and it goes through the system and ends up, there's a lady named Terry Roth Murphy. She is the team leader for this that supports the Center for Global Health. Requirement, opportunity, purchase request, whatever you want to call it, comes to Terry. She looks at it and looks at her staff of, say, 7 people and determines who to assign it to. She assigns it to someone and that's for their action to take it to get it awarded. And so, who it's assigned to based on the team leader, it's based on workload. Who has what? What action someone has. There may be some folks that are more better at doing, IT type services, or more better at doing blanket purchase agreements, or whatever. They have a specialty. There's a branch and a team at CDC that man, they really are nailing that NASA soup contract. They do 90 actions a year, and things like that is to, I got some staff that this NASA soup contract, they're really good at using it, and I let them use it because they're fast and efficient and things like that. So I mean, it's kind of hard to answer, well, what's the workload? Because it varies, it varies throughout the organization. Again, there's some years at CDC that because of, say, COVID, the National Center for Immunization and Respiratory Diseases is hot and heavy because of COVID, or the National Center for, NCEZID for infectious
Based
disease.
on the budget. But
It's hot and
so
heavy.
do you recommend building relationships with the contract specialist, that name that's on there? Would that be a good point
Yeah.
to start to get to the contracting officer?
Sure. Yeah. And there's a lady named Gwen Miles. I don't know if you know that name. Gwen Miles, she's for instance, at CDC, she's the small business manager that can help you with that. If you're looking at CMS, Center for Medicaid Services, there's Anita Allen, there's another person, that's out there to help. These are, and if you go to, say, HHS.gov and look at the Office of Small and Disadvantaged Business, there's a list of those people, who they are. And yeah, I mean, it's a couple weeks ago, I don't know, Paul, I told you this, we did this webinar, and part of that webinar, we released a spreadsheet of 8A expiring contracts at CDC and other expiring contracts at CDC. And there again, say you're an 8A company and you see a contract that's expiring, you can go and find out who the name of record is. It's a little tedious. You got to go back to GovWin or go into sam.gov. FPDS, and you can find out who that individual is. So, yeah, it's definitely try to market these folks. Am I doing good? Am I okay on time, Paula?
We're wonderful on time.
Okay. Just something else. Let me just throw out there. I've heard of this thing called National Contract Management Association, NCMA Atlanta. Check it out. It's a great way to meet companies. You may not meet a lot of contract specialists, but you'll meet a few, and you'll meet maybe some of the decision makers within CDC or within HUD or GSA or whatever. I can't stress NCMA enough. I mean, it's a way to meet
Yes.
people.
It is a wonderful, I encourage participants to get involved in that association, but it's also confusing to a lot of small businesses. You talked about your 15 minutes with the contracting officer. So who are you really trying? Are you trying to market and get to the program manager? Who are you trying to? Because in my experience on the other side in that first business, my core on the contracts that I worked on, he had decision-making powers, meaning he chose where my contract were and worked with the contracting officer. So that's why I think it gets confusing in trying to determine who really is the decision maker for small businesses and who should I be really targeting?
Okay, both. The contracting officer is the decision maker. Now, how much influence the contracting officer representative or the core or the program person has on the contracting officer, that's more of a case-by-case basis. But ultimately, it's the contracting officer decision maker. And at the same time, you may have different levels of contracting officer. You may have a contracting officer that can only sign up to $1 million contract. And if it's a $5 million requirement, it's going to be a higher level contracting officer. But you're trying to market the contracting officer. The core, the contracting officer representative, the program individual, it depends how much, how much they can direct the contracting officer to get them to do what they want to do. Back in the day, the program officer would come to us and say, hey, we have this requirement. we would like to see it go to XYZ company and 8A company. And unless I have reservations with that company, I'm going to do what they asked me to do. You know, I may say, well, we got some issues with this company that you don't know about, and I'm a little reluctant to do this, you know, but it's, you know, you try to make, you know, take the recommendations and the request from the program office, from the Corps, you know, up to a point in time. You know, naturally, sometimes the Corps will come to the contract officer and says, hey, this contract right here, we want this sole source to XYZ company. You know, why is that? Well, because they're local, we like them. And it's like, no, that's not reason to sole source. You know, why, you know, and things like that is, you always want to try to please, the contract officer wants to try to please the customer. The customer is the program office. That's what we're helping, you know, and we, you know, I mean, this happens too when it comes time to select who to award a contract to. You know, you may have the program or the Corps saying, I want that contract award to XYZ company. And I'm kind of an officer, I say, ain't going to happen. They're not low price. They're not high technical. I can't. I got two other companies that are above them in the pecking order when it comes to, you know, source selection. So, but you know, it's, you know, the Corps does have a lot of power. I mean, don't get me wrong. They have a lot of recommendation power and a lot of political power, if you want to call it that. You know, I mean, I had times when they said, we want you to do this. And I say, I'm not going to do it. You can't do that. And they would elevate it to their leadership. And it would, and next thing you know, my leadership's coming down saying, hey, they want you to do this. I say, I'm sorry, I can't do it. It's, you know, but it's the contract officer has all the power, you know, whether they, you know, exercise that power is another thing too. You know, I think there are some contract officers that are maybe too quick to please the customer and maybe do things that we really shouldn't be doing, you know, but that does happen. It's a, you know, it's a personality trait of the Corps and how strong-willed they are and argumentative they are. And you know, that's what happens. It's you know, what goes on, you know, behind the scenes. So Paula, did I answer that question?
You did. And I've had businesses that have, I've had businesses that have been caught in between, meaning they've won the contract and you've had contracting officers, and there's some positions on that contract and they'll recommend maybe somebody they would like to have on that contract. How do small businesses not get caught in between?
I wish I could tell you. I wish I could tell you. Just be careful. You know, it is. You know, be careful pleasing the Corps on something that maybe the contract officer's not keen on. You know, happens all the time. The program office comes in and says, "Hey, we want them to hire Jim Smith." And I can't do that. I can say, here's some candidates you might want to consider, but I can't tell the contractor who they must hire for that job, because then I take the risk off the contractor in performance. And I tell them who to hire. They go and hire them. It doesn't work out. They come back to me and say, hey, we told you to hire. You know, there's this thing, it's a whole nother topic called personal services. You know, that's kind of borderline personal services is when this is what happens is the Corps has been working with these 5 people for 10 years now. Contracts getting ready to switch over. You know, they really want these people to come on board because they're already trained, they're already badged. We already know them. I go to their kids' graduation. You know, whatever, I'll buy Girl Scout cookies from whatever. But I gotta be careful there. And when I start off and we start talking about it, I talked about your ability to hire incumbent contractor employees. That's very important. That's how we can maybe get around that, you know, who they want us to hire. But it's always a recommendation. You know, it's you know, I mean, years ago I had a requirement that they came to us and they wanted to go sole source, and it was some kind of biostatistician with just very, very, very technical. And they came to us and they said, the program came to us, the contract office, and says, we're aware of 3 individuals in this country that have this expertise and experience. And I said, great, who are they? And they gave me the names, and I let everyone know that. We went out competitively and we put a note in there and said, FYI, here's some individuals that may have the required experience and expertise needed for this type of work. You know, but we gotta let everyone have it. You know, we gotta keep everyone on the same footing. You know, it happens all the time. It's just gotta kind of be delicate. and it could be that if the Corps asks you to do something, you may say, I'm not feeling comfortable about this. I don't want to irritate, the contracting officer. Can we get them on the phone and let's all talk about this and just try to, it's thin ice. Try to be careful.
It is. It's
Try
a
to
great
please-
line,
You're
especially
trying to
if it-
please the Corps, but the contract officer is the boss, and sometimes walking that line and playing it both out, but always, if in question, ask the question.
And are there certain divisions that handle those buys that are 25,000 and under? Because those buys may not necessarily be posted on sam.gov.
I'm sure. There's, and back in the day, each agency is different, but again, back in the day at CDC, when it came to simplified acquisitions, which is, at that time, everything under $250,000, that was a centralized function. And they had 10 people, all they touched was everything under $250,000, including anything under 25,000. At CDC, that's no longer the case. It's decentralized. And now it's all, at least at CDC, it's all customer specific. And so if my team supports the Center for Global Health, and the Center for Global Health generates a $10,000 purchase order, then that team processes it. So it's the simplified acquisition and under 25, it is all decentralized, at least at CDC. There's still some federal agencies that have a purchasing agent department and things like that that focus on that, but not at CDC. It's not that way anymore.
So how do businesses, and I've instructed them to go, I use USA Spending in conjunction with FPDS and filter it by $0 to $25,000. So you can get a general idea of what type of purchases are being bought under that threshold. Because again, they don't have to advertise it. But if you get a couple of 25,000, that ends up being 100, you know what I mean?
Sure.
And a way to get into the door.
And there again, all that under 25,000, it's all relationship driven. It's all marketing yourself to the Corps or marketing yourself to the contracting officer and them just having that awareness. I used to keep on the corner of my desk, a stack of what I call cut sheets. These were capability, usually a one-page front back document that companies gave me. And at time for time, I'd go there and we'd look for something and say, here's a company that does that, things like that. You're trying to, get your name out there, get your information out there, get them a cut sheet, get the headache printed off, provide it to them, whatever, and constantly things like that. Because you're right, anything under 25,000, they go to companies they know and companies that they've been marketed with, or things like that. It's and there again, because of maybe what they're buying or who they're supporting. One organization may know a lot about buying lab supplies and things like that. Something else just to think about too is when it comes to selling that kind of stuff. Back in the day, there used to be this thing called fedbid.com. Right now it's
Fedbid.net.
No, it's fedbid.com.
you-
You can pull up. It's been bought by another company, but it's a reverse auction site where CDC may go there and say, hey, we need to buy 10,000 test tubes, and or a low quantity of stuff like that. It's sometimes where things might be published that would not normally be published in sam.gov. Maybe lower dollar type things. But if you go to fedbid.com and Google that, it will take you to the new company. But it's the same thing. A question comes up, man, there's all these credit card holders at CDC, both outside of the procurement office, inside the procurement office, that someone in the program office, they got $10,000 credit card. They can buy something from $10,000 from you. There's quite a few restrictions on what they can and can't buy. But again, it's a mechanism they have. It's a tool in the toolbox. You can't get a copy of the cardholders list. They're not going to give you that. That's not releasable. But by marketing and seeing things and looking at these agency forecasts and just marketing your company, and I tell companies this all the time that you can market yourself and do all this, and you may not get anything out of it. But I guarantee you, if you don't market your company, you're not going to get anything out of it. I know y'all talked about this rejection. You got to be able to take rejection because you're going to get rejected. It's going to happen. You're in this government business long enough, it's going to happen. And you may get rejected for reasons that you don't think's fair. There's avenues for that too, but it's rejection. It goes back to what I said, the 3 P's: patience, patience, patience. You got to be patient with government contract. It's a process. It takes time.
So how accurate is that? You talked about forecasts. How accurate are those forecasts, and how do you recommend small businesses leverage those forecasts?
Okay, great question. It's agency specific how accurate they are. Okay? I mean, you take HUD, Housing and Urban Development.gov. They got what I consider to be a best-in-class forecast. It lays it out. It lays it out by their organization. It has about 8 pages of narrative that tells you how to use the forecast. And I think those 8 pages can be used elsewhere, but they tell you how to do it. It's current information. It is opportunities. Center for Medicaid Services, CMS, which is a operation division, HHS. They put their forecast, it's on their website. It's on cms.gov. And they update it. They update it monthly, quarterly. Okay. It's real information. Okay. Let me talk about CDC's forecast. Okay. CDC, and this goes to your question, Paula. CDC's forecast starts out as a funding drill. They're saying how much money, over $150,000 do you need in the next fiscal year? And that's how it starts out. And so, but they also, by going through that funding drill, that process, they're constantly identifying opportunities that they need money for. And so then, the CDC forecast and the FDA forecast and HRSA and NIH, it all comes out on the HHS platform. And you got to go to that platform and export the forecast off that platform. It's, when it comes to like the CDC, it's as good as we got. You got to go through there and get rid of the things that are not funding opportunities, that are funding the 3rd year of a contract. You take these spreadsheets and you turn on the filters and you filter data, but it's not as that accurate. I mean, but it's as good as we got, and probably, I don't know, 30% of the forecast is not opportunities. They're funding the 3rd year of a contract.
Because in the end, it goes down to relationship.
It does. It really does. And it's all about maybe using an agency forecast just as a way to open the door. And then once you get in the door, then you can talk about other things, or you go after a forecasted opportunity, and you market yourself to the core of the program office, and they say, "Nah, that's already taken." But you know what? I might have something else I might want to talk to you about. It's about getting in the door, getting in the ear, and being nice about it. I mean, let me talk one more thing about likability. You either got it or you don't. Okay. There's not a course out there, I don't think, on likability. Contracting officers, to a certain degree, they want to do business with individuals they like, companies they like, companies that are not pushy, companies that exert patience. That's what they like. And that's what happens. There's companies out there that I would speak to. I was like, man, I don't want to talk to them again. They were painful to talk to, or something else. And let me mention this too, and this is delicate, but accents. There's individuals out there that have a beautiful accent, but I can't understand a word they say. I had years ago in one of these capability briefings came in, this guy came in and spoke, and he was from India and had a very, very hard accent. And after it was over, they said, "What'd you think?" And I said, "You need to get someone else to speak for you. And I'm sorry if I offend you, but I spent too much time trying to read your lips, and I lost the content." You got to have someone that can communicate. That accents are fine, but if it's such that I really got to struggle to hear what you're saying, you need someone else to speak for you. I mean, I hate to be ugly about it, but that's reality.
That is the reality.
That's what it's all about,
Absolutely.
you know, and usually I will tell you that if we're talking and you know, I need help.
Yeah.
I can understand you.
I had the same issues working and servicing some of those businesses in my portfolio. And it's nothing against those individuals, but again, if you're not a salesperson, if you're not the likable person, you're not the one, you need to find someone that's comfortable with marketing to that agency.
And you know, something funny what I mentioned about the PhD guy, the microbiologist guy. Believe it or not, he's one of my clients today. And we still laugh about it. You know, we still laugh about, you know, how smart this guy is. And times in conversation, I'll say, I don't know what you're talking about. So you want me to understand what you're talking about, you're gonna have to dummy it down to me because you know, but that's that. It's you know, knowing, and you know, again, knowing your audience and knowing the complexity level of your audience. I mean, a lot of what I'm telling y'all, this is common sense, but sometimes it's not. You know, and what's common sense to me may not be to you, you know, and the contract officer. So
I'm gonna open it up. We have about 5 more minutes. I'm gonna open it up to the audience to see if you have any questions. You can unmute your phone. Unmute your computer. Anyone have any questions? No questions? I can't believe that. Well, Ed, can you share with the audience, can you share with the audience your most successful story from watching a small business start and grow? And what does that look like?
sure, okay, I'll call out names too. There's a company out there by the name of RWD Consulting. Guy's name's Robert Dozier, you know, a DC-based company, 8A company. Probably 3 years before I retired in 17, 8A company comes to me and wants to talk to me. He walks in, 2 minutes talking to this guy. I'm thinking, wow, I like this guy. He's sharp, he's polished. I never heard the word I, and I like the guy. 2 days later, something came across my desk. I said, here you go. Give this to RWD Consulting. I want to see what they can do. And he took the ball and ran with it. And then I retired, you know, and he was my first client when I retired. And he's still my client. And talking about success, RWD, when I started working with them in February of 2017, they had about 80 employees. Man, they're probably 300 now. You know, but it's his relationship. Man, the guy is a nice guy. He's nice to talk to. He's a good looking man. You know, I can go on and on about how polished this guy is. Let me tell you another story. Well, I think one of your own, a lady by the name of Stacy, right? With Libra, you know, Stacy, right? Y'all know, they know Stacy. You know, here's a story. Before I retired, here comes Stacy, knocked on the door. Can I come talk to you? Come on in and see me. So she comes into my office. Stacy Mollison, so I'm talking about, and talking to me, telling me about that time. You know, I had my door shut because we were in the private meeting. Knock on the door. Here's one of my contract officers. Oh, I'm sorry for interrupting. I said, no, come on in. You know, and I introduced right there on the spot Stacy Mollison to a lady by the name of Jermaine Mullins, and y'all go talk. When Stacy walked out of there, she had a requirement that Jermaine asked her about. You know, this does work. These are success stories. It's about talking and about the relationship and likability, things like that. You know, I mean, let me talk about subcontracting in a minute. This is another recent story. Had a colleague of mine come to me and says, "Hey, could you talk to a company, a client of mine about a requirement they're pursuing?" Yeah, sure. So this is Brian Hevel. This is the guy I did this webinar with. Got, you know, a good friend of mine. So he brings his client to the table. We got talking and about this requirement, and they said, "We need some help. Can you help us?" I said, "I got the company to help you." And in a matter of 3 days, we got 2 companies together and going after something. It's all about talking together. You know, a lot of things can happen through this NCMA thing. It's You never know when someone's going to throw you a bone. It's something else to mention is answer your phone. Okay. If a contracting officer calls you in July 15th and you don't answer your phone, maybe I just went to another company. When it comes to fourth quarter, you need to watch your phone and answer your phone. You got me going now, Paula. Another kind of an irritation I have is when I look at a company's CAPE statement and I see contact us at such and such info, or they'll have an info email address. Man, don't give me no info email address. The owner of that company's name, phone number, and email address needs to be on that CAPE statement. Don't make me come looking for you by calling a general hotline or information line or sending an email to a general email box. Don't do that. I want to know who you are. Another thing we talk about is your CAPE statement. Make sure you identify who your business opportunity specialist is with SBA. Don't make me go looking to find out who your BOS person is in case I want to offer you a 8A requirement or something, or want to get information from it. So
this is absolutely.
now we need another hour. Well, another hour.
This has been absolutely wonderful. Will you all give him a show of support and clap in that Zoom? Have you all enjoyed this and received a lot of tips that I hope that you can use and push forward? Thank you, Ed. We definitely appreciate your service in the government and all of your support with working with small businesses, and you really are making a difference. Thank you again. Do you have any closing words that you would like to give?
Don't give up. Don't give up. Stay the course. Again, had another company, 8A, 3 years, they just got their first contract. And I just kept telling them, don't give up now. You've put too much in. Stay the course. Stay the course. Things happen. A lot of times, things happen for a reason. And when they happen is for a reason. Stay the course. That's can't stress it enough.
Yes, me too. Thank you again. Thank you all, GPI community. Remember tomorrow's information session and the cohort that will start on Tuesday. So make sure you pass the word. Let's keep it going and continue to build the relationships within the community. Have a great weekend.
Y'all too. Thanks.
All right. Bye-bye.
See ya.
Thank you. Bye-bye.